In this video we are going to review how to write equations of lines. This is a standard that you have to pass in order to get through geometry this year, so we want to make sure we give you some resources to get some extra practice. So we have two forms of the lines that we're going to be using. Our first one here is slope-intercept, and the equation, which you guys are probably all familiar with, is y equals mx plus b. Okay, and there are some important parts here. The m, which is your slope, and the b value, which is your y-intercept. So that's the spot where it crosses the y-axis. So I'm going to write it as an ordered point. That's a B. It's not a very good B. Make that a better B. And an example here, I will do y equals negative 2/3 x plus 4. So that is an equation of a line in slope-intercept form. The other equation or form that we have is point-slope form, and hopefully this is one you are getting more used to using. That is y minus y1 equals my slope times x minus x1. The important parts for this one are, again, your slope. Anytime we're writing the equation of the line, we need to have our slope. And then we're given an ordered pair of the ordered pairs x sub 1 comma y sub 1. So we're going to give that point and then use that. So an example of this might look like y minus 3 equals 4 times x plus 7. And this then would be your slope is equal to 4. And move that up a little bit. Slope is equal, let me erase that, maybe. Okay, slope is equal to 4. And then your point for this one would be negative 7, 3. Okay. Some other important things that we've talked about here in this chapter are the slope equation. Again, just to remind you, that is the rise over the run. Or we can do y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Or we can do y sub 1 minus y sub 2 over x sub 1 minus x sub 2. Oops, sorry about that. I have a minus x sub 2. Okay. Your y-intercept is the point where it crosses the y-axis, so 0, whatever that b value is, or point of the line where it crosses the y-axis. Okay. Give you some few seconds to copy that if you need to. And we're going to go into some examples here, just starting from the most basic form to then writing equations for parallel and perpendicular lines. Alright, so first example we're going to do here is in slope, or given, we're going to be given the slope and an intercept. So I'm going to highlight my important parts here. I'm going to use red for my slope. So again, there's my slope, and I will use blue then for my y-intercept. I'm just going to give myself a little parts, so I know my slope is 1/2, and I know my b value is negative 4. And I'm just going to write down y equals mx plus b, because I'm going to use slope-intercept form because I'm given the slope and the y-intercept. This is probably the most basic form we're going to use. So instead of slope, let me highlight that here in red, and instead of the y-intercept, I'm going to plug in my pieces of information. So y, oops, let's go back to black. Y equals my slope, which is 1/2, times x, plus my y-intercept, which is -4. And that is the equation of this line, given that slope of 1/2 and that y-intercept of -4. Again, this is the most basic. This is when you're given the slope and the intercept, so the easiest way to do it. Alright, let's go to the here. Stepping it up just a little bit, we're going to be given the slope and a point. So again, right here, I'm going to highlight my slope right here, and I'm going to highlight the point. I'm going to use green here because it's not my y-intercept, it is a point. So I'm seeing that I'm given a slope and a point, so I know that I'm going to use the equation for point-slope form. So y minus y1 equals my slope times x minus x1. And again, this is just to write the equation of a line, then we're going to take it and we're going to put it into that slope-intercept form. Again, for geometry, this is that those different levels for your standards. So I'm just going to give myself some notes over here on the side. So I know my slope is equal to -3/4, and I know I have a point 8, 3. So I know that the 8 is my x1 and the 3 is my y sub 2. I guess I should say x sub 1. So I'm going to use that information to write my equation. So I've got y minus, let's highlight some things here. Let's give me that y value here, and then let's x value here, and then my slope right here. Okay, so I'm going to write my equation now. So y minus that y1 value, which is 3, equals my slope, which is 3/4, or -3/4. So -3/4 times x minus, and I'm going to put in my x value of 8. Right? So now I've got the equation in point-slope form, or I'm sorry, point-slope form. So now I'm going to take that and put that into slope-intercept form, and we're going to just use distribution, and then we're going to get this y by itself here. So I'm going to just highlight this y. Actually, I'm just going to go here. So I'm going to simplify this, or I'm going to distribute. So y minus 3 isn't changing. I'm going to distribute that -3/4, so -3/4 x. And I've got -3/4, a little side note over here, -3/4 times 8. I'm going to make that 8 over 1. I'm sorry, -8, so that's -24. That's my dead spot, sorry about that. -24 over 4. I'm sorry, that's +24 over 4, which makes that +6 after I distribute. Simplifying this some more, I'm going to add 3 to both sides, so I'm going to go y equals -3/4 x plus 9. So I've got two different equations here. I've got my point-slope form up here, and then I've turned that into my slope-intercept form. Again, those are those different levels when we're grading your exams here, going from point-slope form, turning it into slope-intercept form. Alright, so that was the second level of difficulty, I guess, given the slope and a point. The next example here is going to be given 2 points. Remember, you guys can pause this video at any time to keep up or to catch up. Try and make this bigger and avoid my dead spot on my iPad as I'm going here. So I am given 2 points this time, so I don't really have enough information to start this yet. So the first thing I'm going to do is know that I have to find my slope. I'm going to use red for slope, kind of stick with what I've been doing. So my slope is equal to something. I need to figure that out. So in order to figure that out, I am going to use slope-intercept form. And I think I have an error on my note sheet here. This point here should actually be 5, -5. So make sure you make that correction first. So I'm going to plug in my points. I'm going to write my equation for finding slope. So that's y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Plugging in my numbers here, so y sub 2, I'll start with -5 minus 5 over 5 minus 7. Simplifying this, I've got -10 over -2, which simplifies then to 5. So I know my slope is equal to 5. And the second part of this is that I also have 2 points here. I'm going to pick one of the 2 points now to find my equation of the line. Oops, I don't want my highlighter. So I'm going to use the point 5, -5. It doesn't matter which point you use. Either one will work. The choice is yours. You'll still get the same answer no matter which one you use. So I'm going to use the 5, -5, so I'm going to write down my equation for point slope form. So that's y minus y1 equals my slope times x minus x1. I'm going to just label this x1, y1, so now I'm going to plug those parts in. So I've got y minus the -5, I'll put that in parentheses, equals my slope, which is 5, times x minus 5. And again, you could have used either ordered pair that you're given. Remember, you just need a point and the slope to use point slope form. Alright, now we're going to simplify this and put this into slope-intercept form. So we're going to simplify this first to y plus 5 equals, I'm going to go ahead and distribute in the same step. So 5x minus 25. Getting that y then by itself, I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, so now I've got y equals 5x minus 30. So just to kind of highlight the parts, this is in point slope form. And I've taken that equation and I've changed it into slope-intercept form. Alright, so that's the third level of difficulty. That's probably the most difficult way to do this. Alright, again, pause it if you need to get caught up on the notes. I'm going to move on to the next. Parallel and perpendicular slopes. Just want to make sure we touch base on this one more time. Our parallel lines have the exact same slope. And perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. Alright, so we're just going to make up some given slopes here and find the parallel slope and the perpendicular slope just to kind of review here. So let's do the slope of positive 2. So the parallel slope is exactly the same. It is 2. And the perpendicular slope is going to be, instead of positive, it's going to be negative. And remember, flipping that reciprocal, I'm going to make that 1 over 2. So that's given the slope of 2. Parallel slope, same. Perpendicular slope is opposite reciprocal. Let's do another example of negative 2/3. So the parallel slope is exactly the same, negative 2/3. And the perpendicular slope, instead of negative, it's going to be positive, and then I'm going to flip my fraction. So that becomes 3 over 2. Alright, in the next few, I'm going to do I think 3 more, maybe 2 more. I'm going to give you some equations, and then we're going to figure out what the slope is, and then do the parallel and perpendicular slope. So I'm going to write the equation y equals, let's go negative 5x minus 3. So looking at that equation, I'm just going to highlight the slope here for us. I know that that slope is that negative 5. So the parallel slope is exactly the same. That's going to be negative 5. Perpendicular slope, then, I'm going to make that opposite, so it's going to be positive. I'm going to flip that fraction so it becomes positive 1 over 5. All right, let's do one more equation that looks like that. Y equals, let's do 5/7 x plus 8. So again, let's highlight that slope right here of 5/7. So my parallel slope is exactly the same. Oops, I don't want my highlighter. Let's go back to the pen. Parallel slope is exactly the same, so 5/7. Perpendicular slope is that opposite, so instead of a positive, it's going to be negative. Flips the fraction 7/5. All right, one last example. I'm going to write the equation, making it look a little different. So I'm going to do 2x minus 3y equals 12. So looking at this right now, I really can't tell you what the slope is because it's not in slope-intercept form, so I have to do a little bit of math here. I'm going to look to get that y value by itself here. So I am going to, oops, I don't want that highlighter. I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. So I've got negative 3y equals, I'm going to put this negative 2x first because I want it to look like slope-intercept. Then I'm going to divide everything by negative 3. So my equation in slope-intercept form is y equals negative divided by negative becomes a positive 2/3 x minus 4. So now I can look at my equation and find my slope pretty quickly. So that parallel slope then is 2/3, and my perpendicular slope then would be a negative 3/2. All right, last example here, we're going to write the equation for some parallel and perpendicular lines, given some information. So I'm given the equation y equals 1/2 x minus 8. So I am going to first write the line parallel, given this point here of 6, negative 5, and then I'm going to write this one perpendicular, given the point 7, 2. So here's the first one I'm going to do. Let's make this one in green right here. And I'm going to go ahead and highlight my slope right away. It's that 1/2. So the important piece of information that I need to take from this equation right here is that my slope of the original line, so original slope, is 1/2. I'm going to go ahead and sort of make a little mini table here. I'm going to do my parallel slope, and I'm going to do my perpendicular slope. That again is perpendicular right here. So my parallel slope again is exactly the same, so I'm going to use the green for that equation, so I'm going to put 1/2. And then my perpendicular slope, again, I remember I flip it and make it negative, so it becomes negative 2. Now I'm going to use those two pieces of information. I'm going to do letter A first. So there's A here. So I know my slope for this line parallel, so I'm writing this parallel right now. Slope is 1/2. And the point that I'm going to use then is 6, negative 5. So now we're going to use our point slope form to write this equation of the line. I have the pieces of information that I need, so y minus that negative 5 equals my slope times x minus 6. Again, this is the equation in slope-intercept form, point slope form, and we're going to take that and turn that into slope-intercept form. So I'm going to simplify over here on the left. So this, I don't want the marker, let's go back, I want the pen. So this becomes y plus 5 equals, distributing my slope, 1/2 x 1/2 times -6 is -3. Getting this y by itself, I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, so my final equation in slope-intercept form of the line parallel to the given line is the exact same line. Ha! Isn't that funny? I picked the exact same line to be parallel. So, we're going to go with it. This is my line parallel through that point. I picked the exact point that it goes through. I guess I got lucky. Now we're going to do the one perpendicular. So again, I'm going to use this piece of information up here that I know my perpendicular slope is -2. So let's go ahead and write down the parts that I need here. So for part B, we're doing perpendicular. So I know that the slope is going to be -2, and the point that I'm given that it goes through is the point 2, 7. So let's add that 2, 7. So again, I've got enough information to write that equation. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we've got y minus that y value of 7. I should separate this, equals my new slope for my perpendicular of line times x minus 2. So again, this is the information in point slope form. I'm going to go ahead and take that and simplify it to put it in slope-intercept form. So y minus 7 equals -2x plus 4. Add 7 to both sides, so my final slope-intercept equation is -2x plus 11. So again, this is the line equation of the line perpendicular to that given line with the information I have. So again, this is the review. I don't think there's any more, but it says there's one more slide. I'm going to go ahead and flip. I'm not sure if I got that. That's the end of our review. So go ahead and rewatch if you need to. Ask us any questions. Come and see us during CCR and Math Lab. But make sure you understand how to do this standard. Yep, it's blank. So